Unexpected reunion. Olivia Mendez straightened the last row of tiny chairs in her classroom, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. The Portland rain tapped against the windows of Little Explorer's preschool, creating a soothing rhythm that normally calmed her nerves. Tonight, however, nothing could settle the anxious flutter in her stomach. "Miss Olivia, is my picture going to be by the door?" 4-year-old Theo appeared beside her, his hazel eyes so like his father's wide with anticipation. She knelt to his level, adjusting the collar of his button-up shirt. "Front and center, my little artist. Everyone who comes to the fundraiser will see it first." The annual spring fundraiser was crucial for Little Explorers, and this year they'd managed to secure a corporate sponsor, Horizon Technologies, whose CEO would be attending personally. As lead teacher, Olivia had spent weeks preparing, hoping to impress potential donors enough to fund the school's much-needed playground renovation. "Mommy, when are the important people coming?" Theo asked, fidgeting with excitement. "Soon, sweet pea. Why don't you help Ms. Jessica set up the art display while I finish in here?" As Theo scampered off, Olivia took a deep breath. At 29, she built a life centered entirely around two things: her son and her classroom. Dating had become a distant memory, one she occasionally revisited in quiet moments after Theo was asleep. Not that she regretted her choices. Theo was worth every sacrifice. The murmur of arriving guests drifted down the hallway. Olivia smoothed her modest blue dress and headed toward the main entrance. Mentally rehearsing her welcome speech, she froze mid-step when she saw him. Ethan Westbrook stood in the entryway. Taller than she remembered, his broad shoulders filling out an expertly tailored suit. 5 years had added distinguished touches of silver at his temples, but otherwise, he looked exactly as he had that weekend in San Francisco. The weekend that had changed everything. The weekend that had given her Theo. Principal Donovan was already introducing him. Double quotes. "And we're so fortunate to have Mr. Westbrook of Horizon Technologies joining us tonight. His company's education initiative has already transformed dozens of schools across the West Coast." Ethan smiled politely, shaking hands with parents and staff. He hadn't noticed her yet, standing partially hidden by a display of children's artwork. "Ms. Mendez," Principal Donovan called. "Come meet our benefactor. She's the heart of our preschool program," she told Ethan proudly. Olivia's legs moved automatically. 5 years of carefully constructed walls threatened to crumble as she extended her hand. "Olivia Mendez, thank you for supporting our school." Recognition dawned in his eyes identical to her son's. His hand tightened around hers. "Liv," he whispered, using the nickname from their brief but intense connection. Before she could respond, a small voice called out from behind her. "Mommy, come see my dinosaur picture." Theo barreled into her legs, grinning up at the stranger with innocent curiosity. Ethan's gaze dropped to the boy, and Olivia saw the exact moment understanding hit him. The color drained from his face as he took in Theo's features, the shape of his eyes, the determined set of his jaw, the cowlick in his light brown hair. "Your son?" Ethan asked, his voice barely audible. "Yes," Olivia replied, her heart pounding. "Theo, say hello to Mr. Westbrook. He's helping our school get a new playground." "Really?" Theo's eyes widened with excitement. "With a dinosaur slide?" Ethan crouched down, visibly shaken, but managing a smile. "We'll see what we can do about that dinosaur slide." Olivia caught Principal Donovan's curious glance. "Theo, why don't you show Ms. Jessica where you want your dinosaur picture displayed?" "I need to talk with Mr. Westbrook about the donation." As Theo raced off, Ethan straightened, his expression a storm of confusion and dawning realization. "Olivia, we need to talk." "Not here," she whispered. "Not now. How old is he?" Ethan asked, though his face showed he already knew the answer. "4," she replied, meeting his gaze steadily. "He'll be 5 in October." At a perfect match to their weekend. In San Francisco, almost exactly 5 years ago. I'll continue with parts 2 to 5, making each part slightly longer than part 1 to develop the story further. Part 2, Echoes of the Past You Should Have Told Me. Ethan's words hung in the air between them as they sat in a quiet corner of Bridgetown Coffee, 2 blocks from Little Explorers. The fundraiser had ended an hour ago, with Theo now safely at a sleepover with his best friend from class. Olivia stared into her untouched latte, gathering courage. "How exactly was I supposed to do that?" she finally asked. "Sunrise. No number. No email. Just a note saying you had an early flight, and thanks for the memories." Ethan winced. "I was different then. Horizon was just taking off, and I was a man who didn't want attachments." "I understood that," Olivia finished for him. He made it clear from the beginning it was just that weekend. The memories flooded back with painful clarity. The Tech Education Conference in San Francisco. Olivia, presenting her modest classroom apt to an unimpressed audience, feeling completely out of place among industry giants. Then Ethan, the charismatic founder of an emerging edtech company, approaching her afterward with genuine interest in her ideas. 3 days of intense connection intellectually and physically before reality intervened. "When I found out I was pregnant, I tried to find you," she admitted. "But you were already making headlines, dating models, closing million-dollar deals. I was a kindergarten teacher with student loans." What was I supposed to say? "Remember me? I'm carrying your child." Ethan ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made her heart ache. "So you decided to disappear instead? Move to Portland and raise him alone?" "I decided to give him stability," she corrected. "I moved here because my cousin offered me a place to stay until I got on my feet. Then I found Little Explorers, and it became home." "Does he know anything about me?" Ethan asked, his voice softer now. Olivia shook her head. "He's only 4, Ethan. He knows his father lives far away and can't be with us. I've never spoken badly about you," saving the complicated. "Parts for when he's older." Rain streaked down the cafe window, casting watery shadows across Ethan's face. He looked both older and younger simultaneously, the confident businessman. Now layered with vulnerability she'd only glimpsed during their brief time together. "I've missed everything," he said, almost to himself. "First steps, first words." "You didn't know?" Olivia said, surprising herself by offering him comfort. "I made that choice, and now." "What happens now that I do know?" His eyes met hers, intense and searching. "I want to be in his life, Olivia. He's my son, too." The words she'd simultaneously dreaded and secretly hoped to hear someday hung between them. Olivia took a deep breath. "If you're serious, really serious, we can figure something out. But I need to be clear about this. Theo comes first. This isn't about us or whatever happened 5 years ago. This is about what's best for him." "I understand," Ethan nodded, then hesitated. "And what about Horizons? Donation to Little Explorers?" "I don't want you thinking the school needs that playground," Olivia interrupted. "Your personal connection to me too, Theo, shouldn't change that commitment." "It won't," he assured her. "If anything, I'm thinking we should expand it. Whole facility could use updating." Olivia studied him, searching for the casual charmer she'd met in San Francisco. Instead, she saw a man grappling with life-altering news, yet still thinking of how to help. "I'm staying at the Riverside Hotel for the next 2 weeks," Ethan said. "I was planning to oversee some West Coast expansions, but now, ... Paused. "Would it be possible to meet Theo? Bail properly, I mean? Not as Mr. Westbrook the donor, but as ... whatever you think is appropriate." The question she'd been dreading. Olivia had spent 4 years protecting Theo's heart and her own. Opening that door meant risking everything. A playdate, she finally offered this weekend at Peninsula Park. "As my friend, for now. Let's see how you two connect before we complicate things." Relief washed over Ethan's face. "Thank you." As they stood to leave, he added quietly, "For what it's worth, Liv, you've done an amazing job with him. He's incredible, the first time." Since seeing Ethan again, Olivia felt something shift inside her, a tiny crack in the protective wall she'd built around her heart. "Saturday at 10, she said, pulling on her raincoat. "Don't be late." Tentative steps the playground buzzed with weekend activity as Olivia watched Ethan push Theo on the swings. Her son's delighted squeals carrying across Peninsula Park. 2 weeks had turned into 6, with Ethan extending his stay in Portland indefinitely. citing regional expansion needs that conveniently kept him close to Theo. "Higher, Mr. Ethan. I want to touch the clouds," Theo called, fearless as always. Olivia smiled despite her lingering concerns. She had to admit that Ethan had surprised her. He'd shown up for every playdate punctually, often bringing educational toys or books rather than extravagant gifts. He listened attentively to Theo's endless dinosaur facts and never checked his phone when the boy was speaking. Most importantly, he'd respected her boundaries about his role in Theo's life for now. He's just a friend of Mommy's who enjoyed spending time with them. "He's good with him," remarked Daniela, Olivia's closest friend and fellow teacher at Little. Explorers who joined them today partly out of curiosity and partly as moral support. "He's trying," Olivia acknowledged. "I keep waiting for him to lose interest or get frustrated with the mundane parts of parenting, but ... But he keeps showing up," Daniela finished for her. "That counts for something. Counted for everything." Actually, consistency was what Olivia valued most after years of managing alone. Still, she couldn't ignore the practical realities. His life is in San Francisco. His company, his board meetings, his whole world. This is just temporary. Daniela raised an eyebrow. "Is it though?" "I saw the construction crews starting at Little Explorers yesterday. It's a lot more than just a playground renovation he's funding." Before Olivia could respond, Ethan and Theo approached, both slightly winded from their playground adventures. "Mom, Mr. Ethan says real scientists use microscopes to look at dinosaur bones. Can we get one?" Theo's eyes shone with excitement. Ethan jumped in quickly. "I mentioned that maybe the school could use one for the science corner. Not as a personal gift," he clarified, catching Olivia's expression. She appreciated his sensitivity to her independence. From the beginning, she'd made it clear that lavish gifts were off-limits. Wouldn't have Theo's affection, bought, or her own integrity questioned. "Ice cream time?" Daniela suggested, offering to take Theo to the park's small concession stand. When they were alone, Ethan sat beside Olivia on the bench. "I've been offered a permanent office space in Portland," he said, without preamble. "I'm thinking of taking it." Olivia's heart stuttered. "Because of Theo," partly he admitted, "but also because I've been wanting to establish a stronger Pacific Northwest presence. Portland's tech scene is growing. Our education division could benefit from being closer to innovative schools like Little Explorers." "That sounds very convenient," Olivia said carefully. Ethan turned to face her directly. "I'm not trying to invade your life, live. But I can't just go back to San Francisco now that I know about him. These past weeks with Theo, they've changed everything for me." The sincerity in his voice was undeniable. Still, Olivia had learned the hard way to be cautious. And what happens when he starts asking questions? When he realizes that most of his friends' parents live together, or at least have some clear relationship? Then, "We tell him the truth in appropriate ways," Ethan said simply. "That his mom and dad care about him very much, even if we're not together." The word dad hung between them. Ethan hadn't pushed for that title yet, respecting her timeline. "Think," Olivia said slowly. "It might be time to talk to him. About who you really are." Ethan's expression brightened, then turned serious. "Are you sure?"
"I know,"
she admitted with a small laugh. "But he's starting to form his own theories. Yesterday he asked if you were my boyfriend. I think a simple, honest explanation might be better than letting his imagination run wild." "Whatever you think is best," Ethan said. "I'll follow your lead." As they watched Theo and Daniela return with ice cream cones, Olivia felt both terrified and relieved. Opening this door would change everything, but keeping it closed was becoming increasingly impossible. This weekend, she decided, we'll tell him together. "Nothing complicated, just that you're his father and you've come back to get to know him." Ethan nodded, visibly emotional. Cue. Later that night, after Theo was asleep, Olivia sat alone on her small apartment balcony, staring at the Portland skyline. The simple life she'd carefully constructed was shifting, making room for someone she'd never expected to see again. It terrified her how quickly Ethan had fit himself into their routines. How naturally Theo had taken to him. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Thank you for today, for everything. I know this isn't easy." Despite herself, Olivia smiled. Perhaps the most surprising development wasn't Ethan's presence in Theo's life, but how her own walls were slowly, steadily beginning to crumble. Breaking point, the emergency room's harsh fluorescent lights made Olivia's already pale face look ghostly as she paced the waiting area. Theo's sudden high fever and difficulty breathing had sent them rushing to Portland Children's Hospital at 2 a.m., her normally energetic son frighteningly lethargic in her arms. Pneumonia, the doctor had said after initial tests. We're starting antibiotics, but we'd like to keep him overnight for observation. Now, 3 hours later, Theo was finally sleeping peacefully in a hospital bed, the 4 in his tiny arm delivering medicine that had already begun to help. Olivia hadn't left his side until he drifted off, and even then she'd only stepped out to call the school and update them on her absence. Olivia? She turned to see Ethan rushing through the emergency room, doors, his hair disheveled, wearing what appeared to be pajama bottoms under his hastily donned coat. In the months since they'd told Theo that Ethan was his father a revelation, the boy had accepted with surprising ease. They'd established a delicate co-parenting routine. Still, she hadn't expected Ethan to come racing to the hospital at 5. "I came as soon as I got your message," he said, breathless. "How is he?" "Resting now," she managed, suddenly overwhelmed by his presence. "The doctor says he'll be fine, but they want to monitor him until the fever breaks completely." Relief flooded Ethan's face. "Thank God, can I see him?" She nodded, leading him to Theo's room. The sight of their son looking so small against the hospital sheets made them both pause in the doorway. Ethan's hand found hers instinctively, and for once, Olivia didn't pull away. They stood in silence, watching Theo's chest rise and fall until a nurse came to check his vitals. "His fever's coming down nicely," she told them with a reassuring smile. "Dad, you can take the recliner if you want to stay. Mom looks like she could use some rest too." Neither corrected her assumption about their relationship. Instead, Ethan gently guided Olivia to the small couch by the window while he took the recliner near Theo's bed. "Should go home, get some sleep," Olivia said half-heartedly. "I'm not going anywhere," Ethan replied firmly. "He needs both of us." Those words, so simple yet so profound, broke something open inside Olivia. After years of handling every crisis alone, from middle-of-the-night fevers to daycare emergencies, the weight of having someone share the burden was overwhelming. Tears she'd been holding back spilled over. Ethan moved to her side instantly, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "He's going to be okay, Liv. I know," she whispered. "It's not that. It's just, I've always been the only one for everything." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "But you're not alone anymore." The quiet conviction in his voice cracked the last of her resistance. Olivia leaned into him, allowing herself to accept the comfort he offered as morning light filtered through the hospital blinds. They talked in hushed tones not just about Theo, but about themselves, about missed opportunities and second chances, about the future they might have had if circumstances had been different. "I wasn't ready then," Ethan admitted. "When we met, I was focused on building horizon, convinced relationships would only slow me down. It took years to realize success meant nothing without someone to share it with. And I was too proud to reach out," Olivia confessed, "too afraid of rejection to let you know about Theo." Their conversation was interrupted when Theo stirred, his eyes fluttering open.
"Daddy."
"Mommy?" he called weakly. They both rushed to his bedside. It was the first time he'd called Ethan Daddy, a title they'd told him he could use when he felt ready. The significance wasn't lost on either adult. "We're right here, buddy," Ethan assured him, carefully adjusting Theo's blanket. "Both of you?" Theo asked, looking between them with feverish eyes. "Both of us," Olivia confirmed, stroking his forehead. "We're not going anywhere." As Theo drifted back to sleep, his small hand grasping one of each of theirs, Olivia and Ethan exchanged a look over their son's bed, a look that acknowledged everything that had changed in the past hours. They'd crossed some invisible threshold. The careful boundaries Olivia had maintained between them were dissolving, replaced by something neither had anticipated, the tentative foundation of a family. Full circle 8 months later, Olivia stood in the newly renovated outdoor classroom at Little Explorers. surveying the space that had transformed not just the school, but her life as well. The expanded playground now featured natural learning, stations, a community garden, and yes, the dinosaur slide Theo had requested during that first fateful meeting with Ethan. "Miss Olivia, look what we found." A group of preschoolers clustered around one of the raised garden beds, excitedly pointing at newly sprouted seedlings. Among them was Theo, now 5, and fully recovered from his bout with pneumonia, proudly wearing his garden helper badge. "Those tomatoes are growing beautifully," she praised, kneeling beside them. "Remember how tiny those seeds were when we planted them?" Just like ideas came Ethan's voice from behind her. "Small at first, but given the right care, they grow into something amazing." Stood at the entrance to the outdoor classroom, casual in jeans and a Henley shirt, a far cry from the polished executive who'd walked into the fundraiser nearly a year ago. These days, he split his time between the Portland office he'd established and the classroom initiative he now personally oversaw. Horizon's Growing Minds program had expanded to dozens of schools across the country, with Little Explorers as its flagship model, Mr. Ethan. The children called, rushing to greet him. His visits had become a regular highlight, especially since he always brought interesting science demonstrations or technology for them to explore. Olivia watched as he high-fived each child, saving a special smile for Theo. Their son, and she, could now think of him as their son without reservation, had blossomed with Ethan in his life, growing more confident and curious with each passing day. Later, after the children had been picked up and the classroom was quiet, Ethan helped Olivia arrange supplies for the next day's lessons. "Principal Donovan offered me the curriculum director position," she told him, sorting colored pencils into their containers. "With the expansion, they need someone to oversee the new STEAM program." "That's fantastic," Ethan said, genuinely pleased. "You've always had incredible ideas about integrating technology into early education. I told you that from the first day we met." "You were the only one who did," she reminded him with a smile. "Everyone else at that conference dismissed me as just another teacher playing with apps." "Their loss," Ethan said, moving closer to tuck a strand of hair behind her era gesture that had once been forbidden, but now felt natural. "Speaking of the conference, I've been thinking about San Francisco lately." Olivia tensed slightly. They'd come so far in rebuilding trust, in creating something neither had expected. The small 2-bedroom house they'd moved into 3 months ago, basically as co-parents sharing expenses. Unofficially, as a couple taking tentative steps toward a shared future represented everything she'd never allowed herself to hope for. "Horizon's Education Summit is there next month," Ethan continued, oblivious to her momentary concern. "I was thinking maybe we could all go. Let's make some new memories in the city where it all began." Relief washed over her. "I think Theo would love that." "He's been begging to ride a cable car since you showed him those pictures, and you?" Ethan asked, his voice softening. What would Olivia Mendez love? The question held layers of meaning that weren't lost on her. They'd been careful with each other's hearts. Building a foundation based on co-parenting first, allowing their rekindled feelings to develop slowly alongside their commitment to Theo. "I'd love to stop being careful," she admitted, surprising herself with her honesty. To stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. To believe this is real. Ethan took both her hands in his. "It is real, Liv. What started as the biggest mistake of my life walking away from you led to the greatest gift I never deserved. A second chance. With Theo, with you. We're still figuring it out," she reminded him, though her tone had lost the defensive edge it once carried. "And we'll keep figuring it out," he promised. "Together." As if on cue, Theo burst back into the classroom, having forgotten his dinosaur drawing in the cubby. "Mommy, Daddy, can we get ice cream before we go home?" Home. The word echoed between them, carrying all the meaning they'd been circling for months. "Ice cream sounds perfect," Olivia agreed, gathering her things. Outside as they walked hand in hand with Theo between them. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the playground. The physical manifestation of how their separate paths had finally converged. What had begun as a one-night mistake had transformed, through time and effort and forgiveness, into something neither of them had been looking for, but both had ultimately needed. of family. Built not from obligation, but from choice. From love that had been there all along, waiting for its moment to bloom.